Tonight we begin with a twist in the Russia probe. Democrats have just filed a new lawsuit, and they allege that the Russians conspired with the Trump campaign for the hacking that so defined the 2016 election. This is brand new. It's a civil suit. It names the intelligence services that are run, of course, by Putin. It also explicitly names WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange and the Trump campaign itself, as well as explicitly naming senior figures in it, including suing those two members of the president's family you see right there, Jared Kushner and Donald Trump Jr. The Trump campaign now is punching back. They say this is a sham lawsuit about bogus collusion. All of this coming, of course, as James Comey has exposed things about Donald Trump in those new memos, including that he was allegedly upset that he didn't know about a phone call from Putin right after the inauguration, to Trump allegedly then confronting Michael Flynn about it. And Flynn said the return call to Putin was scheduled a few days later, which prompted a heated reply from Trump that 6 days was not an appropriate period of time to return that call. So not only was Putin one of the first people to call Donald Trump after his inauguration, but Trump was apparently incensed about the return time of those calls. Diplomacy. And another unusual interaction getting a lot of attention tonight, Comey writing that Trump brought up the Russia dossier repeatedly, that he denied those very salacious allegations that we've reported on, and saying that even still, although they weren't true, they were apparently allegedly discussed with Putin. Now, I'm only telling you this because it's right there in these unusual contemporaneous memos that James Comey chose to keep. Now, last night, in an interview that we've discussed on this show that we were waiting for that has now occurred, Rachel Maddow pressing Comey on that whole conversation.
He told you that he'd had a personal conversation with President Putin about hookers?
Yes.
Did you believe him, or did you think he was speaking hyperbolically?
He didn't seem to be speaking hyperbolically.
That's an important and new exchange, because Rachel's getting at the question of, was this just more puffery, hyperbole, lies for whatever reason, or is there something real here? Now, we do know that Trump and Putin were speaking directly on the phone about that time. We don't know what they talked about. You may recall other transcripts have leaked, but not theirs. We can show you something else, though, right now. Vladimir Putin used some of the same language that you just heard when he was asked about the dossier at a press conference. And the context here is this was just weeks before Comey's conversation with Trump about all this.
I don't know Mr. Trump. I've never met him. Hard to imagine why he'd run to a hotel room to meet with Russian girls of questionable social nature. Although, no doubt that Russia has the best of those girls.
I'm joined now by California Congresswoman Jackie Speier, who serves on the House Intelligence Committee, former Watergate Special Prosecutor Nick Ackerman, and MSNBC terrorism analyst Malcolm Nance. Congresswoman, much has come out and much has been discussed about these Comey memos, which leaked from your Congress, your institution, not you per se. Walk us through what you think is significant about this, and was Congress right to leak them?
Well, this is an example where the majority, the Republicans, wanted desperately for those memos to come under their possession so that they could use them as a weapon. They then, I think, leaked them immediately, and it sort of blew up in their faces. It just confirms what then Director Comey had said during the hearings on the Senate side, and also what he has been saying all along. I think one of the most interesting elements of it was the fact that the president referred to Michael Flynn, who was in a very sensitive position as his national security advisor, and commenting to Director Comey at the time that he was concerned about his judgment. Well, why would you put someone in that kind of a position if you did not believe they had sound judgment?
Malcolm?
Well, it's all fascinating to me. You know, I'd like to touch on one point that I felt was absolutely amazing in the Comey memo, which was, it appears that Donald Trump, when he was saying to Jim Comey the whole part about how Russia has the best women, that he might be a little detached from reality. Many of us heard during that time the comments made by Vladimir Putin of women of questionable social responsibility and how Russia might have the best women in the world. Donald Trump somehow seemed to take that comment, embody it, and bring that into his reality as if he had actually spoken to the Russian president.
So your theory, let's go into that. Your theory of the case, because this is new to our viewers, because we just dug up that footage. Your theory of the case is that Donald Trump may not have had that private conversation with Putin, but rather heard those words from Putin and integrated it in his own mind into an imagined conversation?
Yes, and we've seen this happen several times before. The first phone call of a president of the United States with the president of Russia, and if they have a conversation about Russian prostitutes in there, then that's disturbing enough. But I really think that he just heard that comment from Putin and incorporated that into his reality. And I think that's the single most disturbing part of the entire release we had yesterday.
Well, it's a fascinating question, Nick Ackerman. And as you know, in court, there's a saying, not bad meaning bad, but bad meaning good.
Well, I think in this case,
saying?
Yeah, but we don't know.
Do you know that saying?
I do know that saying.
Okay,
but we
well,
got some good and bad here.
I wonder whether this is bad meaning good if Donald Trump was imagining these things. That raises a lot of questions about him, but it might be legally good for him if he wasn't discussing the dossier with Trump.
It might, but he may have been discussing the dossier with Trump. Throughout the campaign, he was boasting that he knew Putin well, that he had conversations with him. And then when the press pointed out to him and others pointed out to him, hey, that's not so good, you know, it sort of questioned his loyalty to the U.S., he suddenly claimed, oh, I never talked to Putin, never explained his prior statements. So you've got a series of prior inconsistent statements where it appeared he was having his own conversations with Putin. We don't know what the truth is. We don't know if during the campaign Trump and Putin had not communicated in some way.
Now, let me ask you the legal part. And obviously, we understand certain parts of this are getting a lot of attention. But the legal part that is more dry, but potentially more legally significant is, do these memos increase or decrease the credibility of James Comey as a witness?
Oh, completely increase. I mean, these are contemporaneous memos. He wrote down everything right after it happened. And if you read through them as a totality, they're even more interesting because you can almost tell, even though he's been criticized for not saying that Trump was obstructing justice, you could almost feel the obstruction when he starts just going into the detail and description of what Trump is saying and how he is saying it. It just reeks of obstruction of justice.
Congresswoman, same question to you.
I think that it underscores Comey's reputation generally as, you know, being straight shooter accurate. I also think it calls into question once again the fitness of the president to serve, because as Comey said in those contemporaneous notes, it was like a puzzle. He was throwing one puzzle piece down, then putting it back up, jumping from one topic to another in a monologue. He does not track well. And in terms of his ability to lie, we have seen that over and over and over again.
Congresswoman, when you say these memos make you question Donald Trump's fitness, what do you mean?
I have for a long time been very concerned about the president's fitness to serve. And I worry whether he is fueling the fires against North Korea with his fire and fury language, or whether he is just having a conversation, in this case with Director Comey, and how he jumps from topic to topic. There isn't the kind of discipline associated with what we would expect to have.
Do these memos, in your view, raise questions about his actual ability to do the job and his legitimacy? Because the militance that he may show in his rhetoric towards other countries is a policy debate. You could vehemently disagree with many presidents on that score.
Well, I would suggest to you that what it shows is that he does not have the discipline to be able to have a conversation, to engage with someone in a manner that has a give and take, that he is constantly jumping from one topic to another. He does that in his press conferences all the time. He continues to repeat sentences over and over again. I worry about his fitness.